إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته كيف حالكم جميعا يا أيها الإخوة والأخوات brothers and sisters in Islam. We have a brief reminder بإذن to discuss about three things. ثلاثة لابد أن تستقر في ذهنك. Three things that should constantly or should stay firmly in your mind, and that you cannot escape these three things. And inshallah ta'ala, we will try our best with the permission of Allah Jalla wa ala and His assistance to go over each of these three things that you should constantly stay firmly on your mind. Just a small fa'idah, a benefit to take with you throughout the day, and something just to actually ponder and reflect on. But before we begin, we would like to start with the statement of Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen, rahmatullah ta'ala alayh, which is a beautiful statement and encouragement for all of us and in spreading the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says that in his tafsir of Surah Baqarah, he says, Nashru ilm. Hold on one second. Do anyone else cannot hear no sound? Because they're saying that there is no sound. Let me take a look at this here. All right, so it's turned up there. If anyone else can't hear no sound, please let me know. You might have to come back in or go back out, inshallah. So he says, نشر علم وإظهاره وبيانه من أسباب المغفرة. Alhamdulillah. So he says that the spreading of knowledge and presenting it and clarifying it is from the means of ascertaining Allah's forgiveness. Now, this is a tremendous statement, right? And is a worthy encouragement, because many of us are not on the battlefield. Many of us are not putting in the feats or the acts of ibadah that the Sahaba and the Salaf have put in. Many of us have dedicated our lives to worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many of us, our prayers is not even made firmly the way that the Salaf would make the prayer. Tayyib? So, not best. So, thinking of that, we need every means possible to us that we can get closer to Allah Jalla wa ala, and we need every means that we can ascertain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgiveness. So that statement hit me the most. That statement hit me the most only because I don't know if this is a drop area here. Hold on here. I don't want to finish this, but let's tell you. That statement hit me the most. It hit me the most because it reminds me, inshallah ta'ala, to want to be more sincere in my calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so I can ascertain His forgiveness. But it's not to be seen or to be heard or to be noticed. You understand? Or it's not to be this person, this big man, and this talib or ilm who got this name. It ain't about that. We go hard to teach and spread and present the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we want Allah Jalla wa ala to forgive us for our many sins. And the Bani Adam, the children of Adam, will sin. There's no doubt about that. All right. And it's important that we understand that as long as we try to stay away from those major sins and that those minor sins do not become many or persistent. We understand these things, which Allah Jalla wa ala clarified to us in His book, as well as the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has clarified to us Sunnah. So I believe that that's a tremendous statement, and I wanted to lead off with that. Now let's get to the actual talk, the small fa'idah. What are the three things that should constantly be firmly or should firmly stay on your mind? There are three things, and that is one, that you must understand la najatun min al-maut. La najatun min al-maut, which is extremely important to understand, that there is no safety from death. There is no safety from death. There is no safety precautions. There is nothing that's going to remove that inedible event. Every one of us will taste it. Kama qala Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah Jalla wa'ala, He says in His book, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made explicitly clear. Allah Jalla wa'ala, He says, وَمَا جَعَلْنَاكَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ الْخُلْدِ. And we have not made anyone before you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have not granted them any immortality. All right? We have not granted them any more. Okay? فَهُمْ خَالِدُونَ. And if you were to die, will they live forever? كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul should taste death. Allah Jalla wa ala, He says, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُ مَيِّتٌ. In another surah, Allah Jalla says, indeed, you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would die, and they surely too would die. Allah also says, making the matter even more clearly, وَجَاءَ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. في Surah Qaf. Allah Jalla said, and وَجَاءَ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ, and when this agony of death actually comes, and it will comes, right? Allah says this will be when it comes to you in truth, this will be the event that you were trying to avoid. Allah Jalla wa ala also says, قُلْ إِنَّ الْمَوْتَ الَّذِي تَفِرُّونَ مِنْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مُلَاقِيكُمْ. Okay, Allah says in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Allah says, say to them, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the death that you rarely tried to flee from, it will surely overtake you. Allah says in Surah An-Nisa, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يُدْرِكْكُمُ الْمَوْتِ, right? وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no matter wheresoever you may be, death will overtake you. It will reach you, even if you were in fortresses that was built strong and high. All right. So the reality of death is something that is very prevalent. None of us can escape that. La najatu min al-maut. It's important that we understand this. Keep this on your mind. And if you understand this, as Sheikh Salih Fawzan Hafidhahullah, he says multiple times in his explanation of Thalathatul Usul, he explains that the concept of believing in the Yom Akhir, believing in the last day, he said it is not just believing in it. Believing in it is preparing for it. Do you understand? So if you know that the inevitable will happen, that you will die, and that you're not safe from it, then you should prepare yourself for it. And Allah Jalla wa ala, He tells you that in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear. Okay? He says, فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ زَادِ التَّقْوَى. All right? Allah says, in the best provision to take, it will be the provisions of taqwa. And Allah Jalla wa ala keep telling, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And do not die except in the state of what? A state of Islam. وَاعْبُدُ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينُ. All different verses. Many verses throughout the Quran stresses this point. He tells Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of course, whatever Sheikh Islam Taymiyyah said, whatever that comes in the Quran that is even specific for the Prophet ﷺ, that is mentioned, that he's specifically mentioned by name or mentioned, O Messenger of Allah or this, then it applies also to the believers. All right, it doesn't, even though the wording is specific, that doesn't mean the ruling is in general. So it applies to the believers. Allah Jalla tells them, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until He says Yati Yakin. He called it Yakin, even though the scholars of Tafsir, they said that here, Yakin meaning the minor hour, which is the lesser death. Okay, that's death, the minor hour, not the major hour, but that's death. So worship your Lord until the actual time comes, until the angel of death come to you. So once you understand that there's no safety from death, then you must prepare for it. How do you make that preparation? How do you prepare for that journey? Okay, you must understand the stages of death, not just the physical moment of it. Not just the separation of the spirit or the soul from the body, but the stages. There are different stages in death. The first stage that you must make sure that if you're safe, you will be safe in every other stage after that. And that is the actual qabr. Being safe in the grave itself. Okay? If you are safe from the torment of the grave, then you pretty much going to be cool. Once you come out of the grave, resurrection, you're going to be cool. And this was mentioned by the Sahaba, the third Khalifa, Uthman ibn Affan, Dhul Nurayn, radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, where he mentioned that it was said to him, you always cry when the hellfire and the paradise is mentioned, you don't cry. But when we're talking about the grave and thing, you always cry. So because I heard the Messenger of Allah something said that this is the first imtihan, this is the first test for the person. If they pass and they do well and they're successful in that part, then everything else will be okay. Okay, so that's what we need to understand. You're not going to be saved from death. This put death in its proper perspective. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't mourn the people that you love, but there's a proper way you should do that. It doesn't mean that, that you shouldn't live your life, carry out and do things. No, there are things that you can enjoy in life, and you should enjoy them in moderation. Doesn't mean all those things. But what it means is that you should keep in your mind that you will have to return back to your Lord. And if you have to return back to your Lord, that was mentioned by Fudayl ibn Iyad, if you have to return back to your Lord, then you need to return back to your Lord with an answer. And if you need to return back to your Lord with an answer, then you need to prepare for that answer. Do you understand? This is what is understanding. So one thing that should never leave your mind is that death will reach you. The problem is in what state. That's what you want to keep in your mind. In what state do you want death to reach you? All right. And what state? You don't know the time. That's something that Allah Jalla wa'ala kept for himself. No soul know in what time they're going to die. Okay, that's something that Allah kept for himself. You don't know the place where you're going to die. You don't know the land. This is something that Allah Jalla wa'ala kept with him. The ilm of the ghaib, from the 5 things, he kept with himself. But in what time, honestly, in what time you have to say to yourself, how would I die? What would be my state? So the ulama, they said that the only way to prepare for that time, which you don't know, is to live like that until death reaches you. Okay? To live like that until death reaches you. Because if you're living that life, then you don't have to worry about it because you're already going to have it. Now, the second thing we need to understand, that's to stay firmly on our mind, now that we've got the reality of death, which is in front of us. The second thing is, وَلَا رَاحَةٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا. Okay, now this is extremely, and I always say this, but this is really extremely important because this plays a lot with our psychology. This plays a lot with our outlook, our perspective. This plays a lot with our mood, how it changes, stabilize our mood, because we don't understand the role of the dunya. You don't understand the role of this world. You don't understand your position or your purpose in this world that leaves you moving to and fro and never being stable. Do you understand? Because you don't understand it. It never was made as a resting place. And what I mean by resting place, meaning that you were going to be here, your feet up, you were going to be relaxing. La rahatun fit dunya. There is no relaxation, true relaxation, not a moment when you always got to move, you always got to work. You already know it. They tell you if you was a working class individual, you'll be working mainly, in a perfect world, you'll be working anywhere between 30 to 39 years of your life. You'll be doing work back and forth, to and fro, because you got to what? Maintain your bills. You got to maintain the living the lifestyle that you live. You got to maintain all of these different things. If you got responsibilities, you got to handle those. So you're constantly moving to and fro. Well, la rahatun fi dunya. There's no relaxation in the dunya. All right. But there are enjoyments and moments that you can take and extract from the dunya if you understand its purpose. The dunya has been made as a bridge. Okay. Dunya is a bridge. That's exactly what it is. So just look at it if you're going across a long bridge. You understand? And you need to take what you can take while going across that bridge so that you can make it safely over to the next side. That's how we need to understand. There is no firm relaxation. As Allah Jalla wa'ala, he tells us, لَقَدْ خَلَقَنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Indeed, we created man to toil, to work, to exhaust himself. وَعَلَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Allah said a man can have nothing except that for what he or she strives for, the necessary effort that they put forth. And they will soon see that effort actually will come to fruition. But they still have to work. Allah Jalla wa'ala also says, ألف لام ميم حسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الله من قبلهم. All right, Allah says in Surah Al-Ankabut, Allah Jalla says, Alif Lam Mim. Do the people not think that they will be left alone and say that we believe and will not be tested? This dunya is a testing place. So there is no relaxation. There's no moment where you should get comfortable in the dunya that you forget the purpose for why you're there. There's no moment that you should get comfortable in the dunya. It's the full circle. It's that what is the purpose of Jannah? What is the purpose of that? If there is no contrast between the life that you live here now and all of the promising rewards that's going to be in Jannah, what's the purpose of it? Jannah have to be different in every regard. You see? Jannah have to be different. So that relaxation, that tranquility, that time that you want to have where you want to kick your feet up and you got to worry about working, you ain't got to go to work. Oh, I miss work for 5 weeks. That's not even on your mind. Or I missed one day, I might lose my job. Or I missed this, this don't happen. Or a bill might don't get paid. That's not going to happen in Jannah. May Allah Jalla wa'ala grant us and make us from among them and me. But that's not going to happen. You ain't going to have none of those worries. Dunya equals worries. As long as you live in dunya, you're going to have problems. That's reality. It's a harsh reality, but it's a reality nonetheless. And the problem, F1, yeah, and the problem is that that's a harsh reality. F1, I think you'll be messing with the cat. Nah, F1, I gotta apologize for that one. Now, Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one time he was on the minbar giving the khutbah. Hassan Hussein, it was his grandchildren, so they came to play with him. So some of the companions, they was actually kind of like fuzzy about it, a little bit peeved and annoyed, but the Prophet ﷺ allowed them to play as he went, right? And he grabbed them up and he held them up and he said, the verse where Allah Jalla wa'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, inna min azwajikum wa awladikum fitna. Okay, you'll believe, indeed, from amongst your wives and your children, there is a fitna for you. Okay, he wasn't saying this in a negative way. We also know that the Prophet was extremely patient when it comes to kids. However, nonetheless, that was, so I apologize for that. Just to continue, we're on dealing with the second part that you need to keep in your mind, and that's that relaxation. So to understand the contrast, worry, the dunya has worries. You're not going to be in this dunya carefree. That's not how Allah sets it up. All right, you have to understand what happened. If you really understand the story, then you understand what you're dealing with, as Ibn al-Qayyim explains elsewhere. That is that your parents, my parents, your parents, all of humanity parents were in bliss. They were in a place where there was no worry. They didn't even know the concept of any worry, grief, sadness. None of that stuff even exists where they were at. Until they was deceived, until they was tempted, and until what happened, transpired between the shaitan whispering, and they're being put out from that. They were placed in an abode where all of those things now have come to the fruition. Do you understand? All those things have now came to light. So that sadness, that grief, that anxiety, that worry, all of that stuff comes with this place. And as long as you live here and reside here, you're going to have your fair share of it. This is why Allah Jalla wa'ala says what? وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُم مِّنَ شَيْءٍ وَنَبْلُوَنَّكُم بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ بَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. So Allah Jalla wa'ala tells you in the Quran, He says, indeed, certainly, and He uses a heavy noon here. So without any hesitation, without any doubt, your deed and certainly you will be tried and tested. Be shay'in. Ibn Kathir said this shay'in here, meaning what? Be shay'in is nakira, meaning is yafidul umum, that General is general. Anything. You understand? Then the law mentions some specific things from that. You will be tried in your wealth. You will be tried with fear. Okay, you won't always feel like you're safe. You will be scared. You'll be tried that something can happen to you. You'll be tried with wealth. You'll be tried with losing wealth, gaining, losing something, provisions. You'll be tried also in losing lives, loved ones. People that were close to you, losing them. Some people lose children. Some people lose their parents. Some people lose their grandparents. Some people lose their cousins, their brothers. Some people lose their loved one that they actually is married to, their husband or their wife. These things is a reality. Okay? You're going to lose these things. You're going to lose fruits and things like that. Allah said, I'm certainly going to try that for best shit is sabirin. So give glad tidings to those who want to show excellent patience. They're going to restrain their tongue for speaking ill of Allah. They're going to restrain their thoughts from having bad thoughts of Allah. They're going to restrain their heart from having negative concepts about Allah Jalla wa Ala because he took their child, or Allah Jalla wa Ala had took their loved one. They're going to restrain from that, or they no longer have this workplace, so they don't have to. They're not going to behave that way. They're going to do what Allah tells them because Allah continues it. Alladina idha asabathum musibatun qalu inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Those who, when they are afflicted with any calamity whatsoever, whether it's a prick or whatever, when they are afflicted with that calamity, what do they say? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That indeed we belong to Allah. Okay, our lives, everything about it, we belong to Him. He's our master. He's our Rabb. And indeed, our returning place will be back to Him. Do you not get it? So the dunya equals worries. This is what I'm trying to get you to understand. You're not going to be relaxed totally. And the way that the dunya is set up, as a Hassan al-Basri so eloquently put it, rahmatullah ta'ala alayhi, when the Tabi'in, al-Hassan al-Basri, he mentioned that the dunya is stuck between two things in the dunya you're going to have. You're going to always have these two things. You're going to rotate between them. It's never going to be one all the way out. And that is, you're either going to be enjoying a blessing, a favor, so you're going to have a moment of reprieve or respite. You're going to feel good. And then soon afterwards, it's going to be a moment of something that's going to come like a calamity or a trial. And you're going to fluctuate between these two states until you meet Allah. That's how the dunya is. And we call it what? Ups and downs. And how many of us didn't have ups and downs throughout our entire life? That's what we have, right? That's what you go through ups and downs throughout your entire life. If you understand this, if you have this knowledge, and you have the Quran you're working with, you have the Sunnah you're working with, you have the Fahm Salaf you're working with, you should be able to be stabilized because you know all of the dunya, you know what's associated with it, then you know that you're not looking for rest in this place. This is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said what in that beautiful hadith when they asked the Prophet ﷺ about laying on the fiber, the palms of the fiber, and you can see the effects of it on his body. He said to me, he said, Mali with dunya, what do I have in relationship to this dunya? He said, I am nothing in this dunya except like a rider, a passerby, or a traveler who stops under a tree to take some shade. I'm not going to be here long, Yani. That's just what he's saying. I am not going to be here long, even if I live 60 years, because he lived 63 years. Even if I live 63 years, even if I live 72 years, 83 years, that's still not long in regards to Allah Jalla wa Ala. I am not going to be here long. I ain't going to be here just passing by. It's just that place. I stop, get some shade, that's it. La rahata fi dunya. We start understanding that, we can start addressing these issues of depression. We can start addressing these issues of anxiety. We can start addressing these issues of sadness and grief. If we start realizing and putting everything in its proper perspective, stop turning away from the very thing that is sent down to you. It's amazing. You got sent from the heavens. Your parents got kicked out from the heavens, right? You got sent to an earth that's associated with so many problems, right? And you got sent down a book, all right, from the same heavens that give you a manual to how to navigate and deal with all of the problems and the mashakils that's going to face you while you're in this dunya. But you turn away from that, right? You turn away from the manual. You don't want to look at that. You don't want to reside on that. And then you just go into yourself further and deeper, and you go here and you go there, and you wonder why you are all over the place and you can't be stabilized. You wonder why. The very same thing that's supposed to stabilize you and keep your thing is your focus and your perspective. Understand the role of the dunya. La rahatun fi dunya. It wasn't made for you to be relaxed. It wasn't me. The messenger of Allah saw the companion building a house. He said, Yani, what are you doing? The man said, I'm building a house, Ya Rasulullah. I mean, how they get Jews? This is permissible to build a house. There's nothing wrong with that. But the Prophet said, he says the matter is more closer than this. What he was trying to say to the companion is that, the time that you return to Allah is going to be is closer. As the Prophet said in another authentic hadith, that death is closer to each one of us than your shoelace. You understand that? So if that time period is going to come, don't lose the main focus. La rahatul fi dunya. And if you understand that there's no relaxation in the dunya, you're not going to be sitting back with your feet up and forgetting about what Allah Jalla wants from you, forgetting about what your duty's supposed to be, forget about this, and that. And it's befitting from Allah Jalla that He bombards you with all of those different things that when you cut Him off and you go searching for everything else, for nothing but worry, grief, and sadness. And Ibn al-Qayyim got a beautiful portion. I think I did it already. You can look at the video where he explained the reality and the hal of the people who worship this dunya and the people who actually go hard for this dunya, and that they're not really happy. Even though you might think that they appear happy, they're not really happy. All right. So he explains that. He goes in detail and brings some good points about it, how it's not been doing. Then the last point that I wanted to bring, inshallah, if I can, here it is. That is the last thing from the three things that should stay firmly on your mind is wala salamun min kalamin nas. Okay, that you will not be safe from what people are going to say about you. It's just not going to happen. Everyone is going to talk. Some people are going to speak for you. Some people are going to speak against you. You cannot control that. What's going to be said about you? Who's going to speak about you? Who like you? Who don't? That isn't your job. That's not why you're here. Your purpose is to serve Allah. Okay? So if you understand these things, it makes it clear. Allah Jalla wa'ala tells Muhammad over and over in the Quran, نَحْنُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. Allah Jalla wa'ala says, نَحْنُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ فَاصْبِرْ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. Be patient for what they say, Ya Muhammad. They call Muhammad a sorcerer. They call him someone who was afflicted by a jinn. They call him someone who was a madman, someone who was a poet. فَاصْبِرْ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. Be patient. وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ قَبْلَ طُلُوعِ الشَّمْسِ وَقَبْلَ الْغُرُوبِ. And glorify Allah, the praises of Allah, of your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala, before the rising of the sun. Fajr. Also for the rest of the prayers, and at night. Glorify Allah. Allah is telling Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, remain patient. At the end of it, it says, نَحْنُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. Okay? وَمَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِجَبَّارٍ. Allah Jalla tell Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know best it is what they say about you. We know. Meaning Allah knows. I hear it. I know exactly what they say about you. But it doesn't affect you. Allah says, and we have not sent you over them to force them to do anything. That's not your job. فَذَكِّرْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مَنْ يَخَافُ بِالْوَعِيدِ. But only remind those who fear the threat. Remind those with the Quran who fears the threat that Allah Jalla wa'ala has made. Remind those who are believers, who have accepted the actual call of Islam, who have accepted the actual call of Allah Jalla wa'ala. Remind them, because it's going to benefit them. So you can't save yourself from what people are going to say about you. Your loved one will talk about you. Your wife will talk about you. Your husband will talk about you. You understand? Your children will talk about you. You understand? Your family members will talk about you, whether good or bad. You understand? Your employee, if you employ someone, or your employer, you understand? Or the people in your neighborhood, you can't save yourself from it. So I wanted to end this point with a beautiful part from a verse that we can get some understanding from, inshallah, that what is the mindset that we should have, knowing that this should be in our mind, that we shouldn't be bothered about what people say. And we humans, we normally do. Sometimes it hurts, especially when it depends on how close the person is that it actually come from. But in reality, you need to be able to look above that. All right. And that is, there's a beautiful verse where Allah Jalla wa'ala mentions in this particular verse. He says some characteristics that the believer should have. All right. And this verse comes in Surah Al-Ma'idah, by the way. It's the 54th verse. It's apart from the verse I want to take. So I would just mention part of it, okay? Inshallah. And that is Allah Jalla wa'ala, He mentions in this beautiful verse, He says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا من يرتد منكم عن دينه فسوف يأتي الله بقوم يحبهم ويحبونه. O you who believe, whoever apostates from amongst you from their deen, they turn back on their heels, they forsake Islam, they give it up. Right? Naam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. He says, know that Allah will bring a people whom He will love and they will love Him. Adillatin ala mu'mineen. They will be of those who will lower their wings. They will be compassionate towards those who are believers. A'izzatin ala kafirin. But they'll be mighty and they'll be mighty towards the disbelievers. Yujahiduna fi sabilillah. They will strive in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wala yakhafuna lawmata la'im. This is the part that I want us to focus on for this last point. That you cannot be safe from the speech of people. Wala yakhafuna lawmata la'im. And they do all of this without fearing the blame of the blamers. Okay, Shaykh Uthaymeen rahmatullah ta'ala alayhi, and his fawaid to this ayah, he brings a lot of benefits to just this one verse. But on the point that I want to look at here, he brings the benefit on, which is the actual 12th benefit that he brings from this verse. He says, أَنَّهُ يَنْبَغِي لِلْإِنسَانِ أَلَّا تَأْخُذُهُ فِي اللَّهِ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ. He says that it is befitting and is suitable for a person that he does not, لَا تَأْخُذُهُ فِي اللَّهِ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ, that he is not taking in, okay? He is not put account by him being in service of Allah, calling to the way of Allah, being in the field of, doing anything he's doing for the sake of Allah, as Allah mentioned, all of those things, that he does not feel the blame of the blamers. Why though? He says, فَمَا دَامَ عَلَى الْحَقِّ, as long as he is upon the truth, as long as she is upon the truth, they don't have to worry about anything that is being said about them. As long as they're upon the truth. فَلَا يَأْمِنُ أَحَدٍ. He doesn't concern himself with the speech of anyone else or what's being said, Kila will call about him. Because every servant is going to have what? An enemy. Do you not understand this? Every servant is going to have an enemy. The Prophet ﷺ said to you what? He says what? Do stuff discreet. Worship Allah. Do not become ta'jis. Don't become a person who become lazy, person who doesn't put forth the effort. And when you do that, don't run forth and tell everybody what you're doing. And we've seen this in the case of who? What do we see this in? We've seen this in the case of the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. When he wanted to tell that dream, he told that dream to his father. What his father told him immediately? Don't relay that dream to your brothers, because he already knew how they felt about Yusuf alayhi salam. So you have to understand that everyone isn't your friend. You're going to have an enemy. Okay? Whether you got an enemy from amongst the jinn or from mankind, you're going to have it. That comes with the territory. Everyone is not going to like you. Everyone is not in your corner, and everyone is not going to feel you. That's reality. And this is what I love about the deen, because once he give us that reality, we supposed to work by that. And the way that we work by that is that we're supposed to move understanding that role. If we act as if we don't understand it, oh, I'm so hurt, how can this happen? No, this is a reality. So he says after that, he says, Allahu Jalla wa, and he brings a verse showing you that, that this will happen. He says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا مِنَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. Allah says in Surah Al-Hajj, and also in Surah Al-Furqan, this verse is in Surah Al-Furqan, Allah Jalla wa says, and thus have we made for each prophet, right, an enemy from amongst the criminals, from the mujrimeen. All right? What's ba'al anbiya kadhalik. Shaykh Uthaymeen said, and the followers of the prophets as well. So if you following the prophetic guidance, and you following the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you following the Quran, you're going to make enemies. Period. That's basically what he's saying. This ayah can apply to you as well. He says, it is a must that you're going to have enemies from amongst the criminals that's going to dislike you. However, Allah ends this verse. This verse we talk about in Surah Al-Furqan. He says, وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا. He says, and sufficient is your Lord, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a guide, okay, and also one as a helper and supporter. Meaning you don't have to rely on the help of anyone besides Allah, because Allah is always going to help, and He's going to aid you, as we've seen in the verse we're talking about now. Allah Jalla wa Ala said that He will bring a group of people who will actually fight in His way, who will support, who will be this, who will be that. So you don't never have to worry about whether or not you don't have anyone with you. Do you understand? That's out of the question. As long as you got Allah, you got everything. And I know we say this to sound fly, we make these statements, but we really don't understand what that means. All right? And sometimes the best way you can understand, I know when when you start realizing that you really don't have no one but Allah, is like the time when I was Allah Jalla blessed me to go to Egypt. And I only had a little bit of money that I went over there because somebody sent me over there in the first place. So, may Allah reward them, I mean. But when I got there, I didn't know a soul. Do you understand that? I didn't know one soul. You understand? I didn't know one soul. Alhamdulillah, I know a little bit of the Luka to be able to speak this, and that, but I didn't know anybody. And when my funds was depleted, I felt not the creation, not this person, not that person. And if you understand that, that's the way you want to be able to move. So when you say that I have Allah and nothing else there, you have to realize that's all you have. That's Allahu Jalla wa Ala. I've been up and down throughout my entire life. And all those ups and downs is via my only actions, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still conferring his favor upon me. We have to understand these things, and it makes us better mentally. We won't be suffering from all of these things that we bring on ourselves. We won't be running around here talking about my mood is always it's flexion. I'm always never right. That's not a good sign. As Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that the word hazan is not mentioned in the Quran except two routes. It's either blameworthy in the first case, all right? It's either blameworthy. It's not mentioned in the praiseworthy type. You never hear the word hazan being mentioned praiseworthy in the Quran, period. It's not saying that you're not going to get sad. We're all going to get sad. It's not saying that the Prophet didn't get sad or the Anbiya didn't get sad or none of that, but he didn't allow it to tip them over the scale. They don't know whether they're coming or going. That's not the hal of the believer. The believer is so settled, so firm that you cannot move. It's immovable. And he's like that because of his heart. Allah Jalla wa Ala tells us that the iman in our heart is a light, as it comes in Surah An-Nur. All right, that iman in our heart is a light. It's supposed to be illuminating. It's supposed to be radiating. If there's no one on this earth that is more firm and more thabit and more not moving all around and not all over the place or discombobulated, that will be a believer. Do you understand that? That's who that will be. They don't panic and do all this extra stuff. No, they are very firm because they hear. They will stab it in the color. But if your heart is all over the place and it's not clean, it's not saneem, and it's not pure, and it's not wholesome, and it's all this and stuff, you're going to be afraid of your own shadow. Do you understand that? You're going to be afraid of your own shadow. You're going to be guessing. You're going to be open up to many doubts and all of these different problems you're going to have in your life, and you're going to be discombobulated, and you're going to be disarrayed because what? You don't have no firmness here. So when you understand that the wahi works to stabilize that, the best move stabilizer you can have is the book of Allah, because that wahi gives it that tatma'inna. It gives it that perfect tranquility. And this is why you find statements of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim and many of the A'imma. You find them saying that if anyone wants to reach the Jannah, the actual Jannah, then they need to build the Jannah where? In their heart. That's the first. If you know you're going to get there, you know you're going to have the Jannah in your heart first. But how do you get to that point? You're going to have to start believing in what you're saying. Last but not least, he finishes it at the end here. He says, so Allahu Jalla wa Ala, he says, look, undur. He says, look at how Allah Jalla wa Ala ends the actual verse, or look at what it ends with. All right? He says, look at what it ends with. He says it ends with what? وَكَفَ بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا. He says, look how Allah ends the verse. And that's another thing. When we read the book of Allah, it's very imperative that we start reading it with some type of reflection. And reflection only takes place with ilm, all right? You can reflect according abstract to yourself, but don't try to deceive yourself, because that's how many people want to stray. But when you realize that you need to have some ilm, so that means ilm, what I mean by that, you need to understand some Arabic. And the best way, if you don't understand some Arabic, read a tafsir. Pick up a tafsir and read the ayat with the tafsir so you can get some type of reflection upon the actual ayat. So you can say, okay, I can ponder, I can see this. Because the ayats, they contain the way that they start, there's a fa'idah in that, okay? The sifat that Allah uses to conclude the ayat with is a fa'idah in that. Do you not understand? The way that it's actually arranged is a fa'idah in that. Allah might say a same wording, but rearrange the wording. It's a fa'idah in that. So to understand these things, it's going to take for you to learn and study so that you can get the maximum benefit from it. He says, look how Allah Jalla wa Ala ends this verse. He says, وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا. What is Allah talking about? He's told Muhammad that every prophet got an enemy from the Muslimin. But now, why would Allah Jalla wa Ala end the verse saying that, and your Lord is sufficient as a head, as a guide, and as a helper, as a supporter, right? Shaykh al-Jameen says, إِمَّا يَدُلُّ النَّاسِ بِالْفَقْرِ وَالتَّشْكِيكِ وَمَا أَشْبَهَ ذَلِكَ. He says, because these are enemies to the people, to the prophets, and to their followers. Either they mislead other people through ideologies, concepts, or doubts, or anything similar to that, فَقَطَعَ طَعْمَهُمْ بِقَوْلِهِ وَكَفَى بِرَبِّهِمْ. So Allah Jalla wa Ala, He cuts that off. He let the Prophet ﷺ know that you already have someone who can guide you and someone who can support you and help you. You already have that. So you don't have to worry or fret. Even though you got these enemies, you got a protector. You got someone that's there. Shaykh al-Damini says, إِمَّا إِنْ يُحَوِّلَ الصَّدْ النَّاسِ بِقُوَّةٍ فَقَبْلَ ذَلِكَ بِقَوْلِهِ وَنَصِيرًا. Okay? And he says, and whereas they would try to mislead the people, with strength, opposing that, what is used to oppose is the statement of Allah when He says, وَنَصِيرًا. So people trying to lead people astray physically or cause people away with strength or anything, or any tactics they're using, Allah still will help you. Last night he says, إِذٍ كُلُّ إِنسَانٍ يَتَمَسَّكُ بِالشَّرِيعَةِ فَلَا بُدَّ مِنْ مَلَامَةٍ يَلُومُهُ أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ. Therefore, every person must hold firmly to the Sharia, the legislation of Allah. فَلَا بُدَّ مِنْ مَلَامَةٍ. And he must understand he will be blamed. You understand that there will be some blame. People are going to run their mouths. People are going to say things about you. People are going to accuse you of things. People are going to actually attack you. This is going to happen when you step into their shoes. That's the reality. You can't change it. This is what He's saying. He says, "Yalumahu akthar an-nas." Many people are going to censor you. Many people are going to blame you. There are people talking all day, non-stop. The brother, do he have knowledge? No, he don't have knowledge. Look how he pronounced the Arabic letters. He don't pronounce the Arabic letters correct. Look how you do that. He haven't studied anywhere. Oh yeah, the brother do have knowledge. He this, he that. It doesn't matter. If the person if they talking about is doing what he's doing for the sake of Allah, what can he care whether they say yay or nay? It doesn't matter. Because they don't even possess the ability to reward you or punish you. They don't possess the ability to what? To accept your efforts or not. They don't even possess the ability to make your dawah be to move forward or not. Only Allah possesses that ability. So why are you going to get worried about who want to say something to you? This is golden. This is golden. Last but not least, he says out of 199 people, only one person is going to be pulled out of the fire. You do the math. If 999 people, only one person is going to be pulled out, meaning 1,001 is going to be taken out. And the other 999 is going to be put in the fire. That lets you know where people are at. Lets you know what you're dealing with, right? So you can't expect all that certain things that's going to happen. So those three things, I'm just going to repeat them and then we're going to end, inshallah. Those three things are important that we should not leave. We should keep firmly on our mind. The first one, again, let's remember that. The first one is that there is no safety from death. You're going to die. When you understand that, you start making preparations. Do you not understand? That's what that means. Prepared. Okay. The second one is there is no relaxation in the dunya. What you understand from that is that dunya equates worries. I know you might say, what the brother's talking about? No, the problems and mashakil, calamities is all associated with the dunya. As long as you reside here, you're going to deal with it. Up and down. That's the dunya. It's not a straight way. It's just an up and down hill. Do you not understand? But there are ways that you can combat it, and you need the manual, the Sunnah, and the Quran, and the Sunnah to help you navigate through that, inshallah. And last but not least, the last one we mentioned, that there is no safety from when people want to talk about you. They're going to talk about you. So we ask Allah to allow us to keep these things in our minds and to actually make true preparation, even despite our many sins. Do not let shaitan fool you because you sin on a regular basis that you can't become good. Shaitan fooled us, man. He have us thinking, okay, because I did this sin or I'm doing this sin, I don't need to pray 5 times a day. And you will literally stop praying. So now you're not praying no more. So you didn't aggravate the whole situation. You're not even praying to seek the forgiveness for the situation. You're just continuing the sin and you're just going headlong in it. This is why sins does what? It deprives you of those certain things. But no, if you're sinning, you need to be praying. The more you sin, the more you need to be praying. I mean, that's the logical conclusion. You understand? I need forgiveness. Istighfar. I sin on a daily basis. Istighfar. As Allah says in the Hadith Qudsi, He made it clear. Okay? Ya bani Adam, O sons of Adam. You're kullukum. All of you are misguided. And He says, kullukum, all of you are going to sin. Tuqti'una fil layli wan nahar. All of you are going to commit sins in the night and the day. Okay? وَأَنَا أَغْفِرُ لَكُمْ. Allah says, and seek your forgiveness of me, because only He can forgive sins, and I will forgive you. So each of us is going to fall short. That's already going to happen. But don't allow the shaitan play you and fool you and trick you and think that because you fell short, you can't approach Allah. That's bald. That's bogus. All right? That's batil. All right? You can always approach Allah. Don't ever think that you can't approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the many spice that you have. We ask Allah to allow this to be a benefit for us, inshallah. And sorry for taking up too much of your time. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it, inshallah ta'ala. and we ever said it was incorrect, in our translation today, it was definitely from ourselves. And Shaitan said it's correct from Allah. Subhanakallahu wa bihamdi. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.